The moment my wife called me harmless in front of 80 people, I knew someone was going to pay. I just didn't know it would be everyone. Here he is, my boring husband, Carla announced as I approached her and Derek at the office holiday party. The glittering lights above cast shadows across their faces, making their smirks look almost demonic. The cheap punch in my plastic cup suddenly tasted like betrayal. Derek Martinez, all 6'2" of Jim's sculpted arrogance, looked me up and down like I was something he'd scrape off his Italian leather shoes. So you're the accountant? Yeah, Derek knows how to have fun, unlike some people. Carla's laugh was sharp enough to cut glass. She'd had 3 drinks already, I could tell by the way she swayed slightly, her designer dress catching the light as she leaned closer to Derek. Maybe she needs someone with more excitement in her life, Derek said, his hand finding the small of her back. Right there, in front of everyone, in front of me. Oh, he's harmless. Carla waved her hand dismissively. Wouldn't know what to do if I left anyway. Would you, honey? The conversations around us had quieted. Colleagues from both our companies were watching this little drama unfold like it was primetime television. I could see Monica from Carla's marketing team recording on her phone. Great. This would be on social media within the hour. I stood there, frozen like a deer in headlights, my mouth opening and closing without sound. The sarcastic comeback that should have rolled off my tongue stayed locked in my throat. Instead, I managed a weak smile and mumbled something about getting another drink. That's my harmless little accountant, Carla called after me, and the laughter that followed felt like nails on a chalkboard. I walked away, my face burning with humiliation, my hands shaking slightly as I set down my untouched punch. 43 years old, and I was being treated like a child who'd wandered into the adults' conversation. The worst part? She wasn't wrong. I had been harmless, predictable, safe. But as I stood by the refreshment table, watching my wife whisper something in Derek's ear that made him throw back his head and laugh, something cold and calculating settled in my chest. She wanted excitement? She thought I was harmless? Guess we were about to find out just how wrong she could be. I spent the rest of the party watching them. Really watching. The way Derek's hand lingered on her waist when they danced. How she threw her head back when he whispered in her ear. The way they disappeared together for 20 minutes and came back with her lipstick slightly smudged and his shirt wrinkled. When we got home that night, Carla was humming. Actually humming. She kicked off her heels and started getting undressed right there in the living room. Something she hadn't done in months. Fun party, she said, not looking at me. Yeah, real fun. I kept my voice neutral, but inside, that cold thing was growing larger. Derek's quite the character, isn't he? If you say so. She paused in pulling off her earrings. Don't be like that, David. You're being sensitive. Sensitive. Right. Because watching your wife flirt with another man in public was just me being sensitive. I'm going to bed, I said. I'll be up in a bit. Just going to take a bath. She took a 40-minute bath. I know because I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to her hum the same tune she'd been humming since we left the party. When she finally came to bed, she turned away from me and fell asleep within minutes. I stared at the back of her head for a long time, thinking about that word. Harmless. 3 days later, Carla forgot her purse in my car. She called me at work, breathless and frantic. David, I left my purse in your Honda. I need it for my lunch meeting. Can you bring it by? Sure, I said, but something felt off. Carla never forgot anything. She was the type of person who had backup plans for her backup plans. Forgetting her purse was like forgetting to breathe. I found her purse wedged between the passenger seat and center console. As I pulled it out, something else came with it. A small black phone I'd never seen before. My hands went still. Carla had her regular iPhone, the one with the pink case she'd bought last month. This was different. Older. A burner phone, my suspicious mind whispered. I should have taken it straight to her. Should have assumed it belonged to someone else. Maybe fell out of a colleague's pocket. Should have been the harmless, trusting husband she knew I was. Instead, I turned it on. The phone buzzed to life, and immediately, I was looking at a string of text messages. The contact name made my stomach drop. D. Last night was incredible. Can't stop thinking about you. When can we do it again? Your husband really is clueless, isn't he? I scrolled up, my hands shaking now. Weeks of messages, months maybe. Hotel room numbers, times and dates. And worse, so much worse, her responses. He's so boring in bed. You make me feel alive again. I can't believe I settled for him. Really think I could do better. He's harmless. Probably suspects nothing. Too weak to leave even if he found out. David's working late again. Come over at 8. Use the back door. The back door? Our back door. She'd been bringing Derek to our house, to our bed. My vision went red for a moment, and I had to grip the steering wheel to keep from throwing the phone across the parking lot. But then, that cold, calculating feeling from the party came back, stronger this time. I took pictures of everything. Every message, every photo they'd sent each other. Every hotel receipt Derek had photographed and sent with messages like, "Worth every penny, baby." Then I put the phone back exactly where I'd found it and drove to Carla's office. "You're a lifesaver," she said, kissing my cheek as I handed over her purse. "Did you see my other phone in there? The old one?" "No," I lied smoothly. "Just the purse." I must have left it at home." She was already turning away, dismissing me. "Thanks, honey. See you tonight." "See you tonight," I agreed. But as I walked back to my car, I was already making plans. She thought I was harmless. She thought I was too weak to leave. Time to show my wife just how wrong she could be. That evening, I acted completely normal. Made dinner, asked about her day, watched television beside her on the couch. She was distracted, checking her regular phone constantly, probably wondering where her secret phone had gone. "Everything okay?" I asked during a commercial. "Fine, just work stuff." She didn't look at me. "Derek seems nice," I said casually. That got her attention. Her head snapped toward me, eyes wide. "What? From the party?" "Derek. He seems like a nice guy." "Oh, yeah, he's fine." She turned back to the television, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. "Maybe we should have him over for dinner sometime. Since you two seem to get along so well." "David?" Her voice held a warning. "What? I'm just trying to be friendly. You're always saying I should be more social." She stared at me for a long moment, and I kept my expression perfectly innocent. Finally, she shook her head. "You're being weird." "Am I?" I smiled. "Sorry, just trying to be more exciting." The word exciting hung in the air between us like a challenge. Carla's face went pale, and she mumbled something about being tired before heading upstairs. I sat there alone, still smiling, thinking about those text messages, about Derek's hands on my wife, about how they'd both laughed at me, the harmless little accountant who wouldn't know what to do if she left. They wanted excitement? They were about to get more than they bargained for. I joined Eddie's boxing gym the next morning. Eddie Kowalski was a 60-year-old ex-Marine who ran the grittiest gym in the city, the kind of place where the heavy bags were held together with duct tape and the smell of sweat was permanently embedded in the walls. Not exactly where you'd expect to find a mild-mannered accountant. "You sure about this, pencil pusher?" Eddie asked, looking me up and down. "This ain't some fancy fitness club with smoothie bars." "I'm sure." "What's your goal? Lose weight? Get in shape for the wife?" I met his eyes. "I want to stop being harmless." Something in my expression must have convinced him, because he nodded slowly. "All right then. But I don't coddle anybody. You want to transform, it's going to hurt." "Good." The first week nearly killed me. I'd come home with bruised ribs, split lips, and muscles I didn't know existed, screaming in agony. Carla barely noticed. She was too busy with her late meetings and client dinners that always seemed to run until midnight. But I kept going back. Every morning at 5 a.m. before work. Every evening after the office closed. Eddie worked me like a man possessed, and slowly, something started to change. It wasn't just physical, though after a month I'd lost 15 pounds and gained muscle definition I hadn't seen since college. It was mental. The rage that had been eating me alive was crystallizing into something colder, more focused. "You're different," Carla said one evening, looking up from her phone as I walked through the door. My shirt was soaked with sweat, my knuckles wrapped in tape. "Different how?" "I don't know. Harder, I guess." She seemed almost nervous. Maybe I'm just tired of being soft." She didn't respond, but I caught her studying me when she thought I wasn't looking. "Good. Let her wonder. At work, I started making changes too. I'd always been competent but invisible, the guy who did his job well but never rocked the boat. Now I started speaking up in meetings, challenging decisions, making suggestions that saved the company money. My boss, Harold Shepard, pulled me aside after I'd identified a major cost-saving opportunity. David, I don't know what's gotten into you lately, but I like it. You've got a killer instinct I never saw before. Killer instinct? I like the sound of that. Just trying to be more proactive, Mr. Shepard. Well, keep it up. There might be a promotion in your future if this continues. A promotion. More money, more respect, more power. All things that would come in handy for what I was planning. Meanwhile, Carla was getting sloppy. The secret phone appeared and disappeared regularly now. She'd take calls in the shower, claiming it was work. She started working weekends and coming home smelling like cologne that definitely wasn't mine. The final straw came on a Thursday night. I was in the kitchen making dinner when I heard her on the phone upstairs. He's been acting strange lately, she was saying. More, I don't know, aggressive? It's probably nothing, but it's making me nervous. I crept to the bottom of the stairs listening. No, I don't think he knows. He's not smart enough to figure it out. But he's been working out, getting all muscled up. It's weird. A pause. What do you mean, what if he finds out? David. He'd probably just cry and beg me to stay. He's pathetic, Derek. Always has been. Derek. Of course. Besides, even if he did leave me, I'd get half of everything, maybe more. I've been documenting his emotional distance for months. Any lawyer would see I'm the victim here. My hands clenched into fists. She wasn't just cheating on me, she was planning to destroy me in court. Trust me, baby. David's harmless. The most dangerous thing he's ever done is use the wrong pen on a tax form. That did it. The cold, calculating thing in my chest finally crystallized into something sharp and deadly. She thought I was harmless? She thought I was pathetic? Time to show Carla and Derek what a real monster looked like. I walked back to the kitchen and continued making dinner, humming the same tune she'd been humming the night of the office party. When she came downstairs 20 minutes later, I was setting the table like nothing had happened. Smells good, she said, but she was watching me carefully. I aim to please, I replied, giving her my most innocent smile. But inside, I was already planning their destruction. I started with Derek's car. It was a beautiful thing, a brand new BMW M4 in midnight black, probably cost him 60 grand. He parked it in the same spot every day at his office building, right under a security camera that had been broken for months. I know because I'd been watching him for 2 weeks, learning his patterns. Derek was a creature of habit. Gym at 6 a.m., Starbucks at 7:30, office by 8:15. Lunch at the same Italian place every Tuesday and Thursday, probably where he took my wife on their dates. He left work at exactly 5:30 p.m. unless he was meeting Carla, in which case he'd slip out early. On a rainy Wednesday evening while Derek was inside working late, actually having drinks with Carla at the hotel bar across the street, I'd followed them. I made my move. The key slid along the paint like a hot knife through butter. 7 letters across the driver's side door. Monster. Deep enough to require a complete repaint, but not deep enough to set off any alarms. But that was just the beginning. I'd stopped at the fish market on my way over. The salmon I'd bought was 3 days past its expiration date, nice and ripe. It fit perfectly in his trunk, tucked up under the spare tire where he wouldn't find it for days. The smell would be memorable. I was back in my own car across the street when Derek and Carla emerged from the hotel. They were holding hands, laughing about something. Derek spun her around on the sidewalk, and she threw her head back in delight. My wife, spinning in the arms of another man like some romantic movie heroine. I watched Derek discover the damage to his car. First confusion, then rage. He walked around the BMW twice, his face getting redder with each step. Carla stood beside him, one hand over her mouth in shock. Who the hell would do this? Derek's voice carried across the parking lot. Maybe it was random, Carla suggested, but her voice was shaky. Random. They wrote monster on my car, Carla. That's not random. I could see them both thinking the same thing. Could David have done this? Harmless, pathetic David? Derek pulled out his phone. Probably calling the police. Good luck with that. No witnesses, no fingerprints, and a broken security camera. Just a vandalized car and a dead fish that wouldn't be discovered until tomorrow. I drove home whistling. Carla came in an hour later, her face pale and drawn. How was work? I asked from the couch, not looking up from my book. Fine, just long day. Anything interesting happen? She hesitated. No, nothing interesting. I nodded and went back to reading. But I could feel her watching me, studying my face for any sign of guilt or satisfaction. She wouldn't find any. I'd been practicing. The next morning, Derek's car was towed. The smell had gotten so bad that his office building's management demanded it be removed from their parking garage. I heard about it from Monica, who worked with Carla and loved to gossip. Can you believe someone would do that? Monica said when I ran into her at the coffee shop near our offices. Derek's car got vandalized and someone put rotting fish in his trunk. It's going to cost thousands to fix. That's terrible, I said, shaking my head in sympathy. Any idea who might have done it? Derek thinks it might be someone from work. You know how competitive sales can be. But between you and me, she leaned closer, lowering her voice, I think it might be personal. Someone who really wanted to hurt him. What makes you say that? Well, he's been seeing someone, a married woman. Maybe her husband found out. I raised my eyebrows in fake surprise. Derek's having an affair? Oh, you didn't hear it from me, but yes. And if I were her husband, I'd be pretty angry too. I can imagine, I said, though I'd probably handle it differently. How so? I smiled. I'd make sure they both paid. Monica laughed, thinking it was a joke. If only she knew. That evening, Carla was jumpy as a cat. Every sound made her flinch, and she kept checking her phone obsessively. Everything okay? I asked during dinner. Fine, just tired. You seem nervous. I'm not nervous. But her hand was shaking as she reached for her water glass. Good. Because if something was bothering you, you'd tell me, right? We're married. We're supposed to share everything. The word everything hit her like a physical blow. She went very still, her fork halfway to her mouth. Of course, she said finally. Good. Because I'd hate to think you were keeping secrets from me. That would make me very upset. I let the word hang in the air, watching her face. She was remembering the office party, remembering calling me harmless, wondering if maybe she'd been wrong. David, is there something you want to ask me? Like what? I don't know. You've been acting strange lately. Strange how? Different. Harder. Like you're angry about something. I set down my fork and looked at her directly. Really looked at her, letting her see something cold and calculating in my eyes. I'm not angry, Carla. I'm just tired of being taken for granted. She swallowed hard. What do you mean? I think you know what I mean. We stared at each other across the table, and for the first time in months, I saw real fear in her eyes. Good. Fear was respect's ugly cousin, but it would do for now. I should do some work, she said, standing abruptly. You do that. I'll clean up. As she hurried upstairs, I smiled to myself. The fish in Derek's trunk was just the appetizer. The main course was still coming. Monica Chen turned out to be more useful than I'd expected. I'd started running into her accidentally at various coffee shops and restaurants around town. Monica was one of those people who knew everyone's business and loved to share it. What I hadn't realized was how much she resented my wife. Carla thinks she's so much better than everyone else, Monica confided over lattes at our third chance meeting. Always talking about her perfect marriage, her successful husband, her amazing life. Makes me sick. She talks about our marriage at work. Oh, constantly. How devoted you are. How you worship the ground she walks on. How she could probably get away with murder and you'd still adore her. Monica paused, studying my face. Though lately she's been saying different things. Like what? Like maybe you're not as devoted as she thought. Like maybe you're starting to grow a backbone. I leaned back in my chair. And what do you think about that? I think it's about time. Carla's gotten away with too much for too long. What do you mean? Monica hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. David, how well do you really know your wife? What kind of question is that? The kind that might save you a lot of heartache. Or maybe cause it, depending on how you handle the truth. I set down my coffee cup. What truth? Derek Martinez isn't her first affair. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? There was someone else about a year ago, a client. She was very discreet about it, but I saw them together. Multiple times. My hands clenched into fists under the table. Why are you telling me this? Because Carla ruined my last relationship. She told my boyfriend I was cheating on him, which was a complete lie, because she was jealous that he was paying attention to me instead of her. She destroyed my happiness, and now I'm returning the favor. I stared at Monica, seeing her in a new light. She wasn't just a gossipy coworker. She was a woman scorned, looking for revenge, and she just handed me the perfect weapon. What do you want from me? I asked. I want to watch Carla's perfect life fall apart, and I want to help make it happen. We shook hands across the table like business partners sealing a deal, which, in a way, we were. Monica's first gift to me was Derek's employee file. She'd sweet-talked someone in HR into letting her borrow it for a project. What I found inside was pure gold. Derek had been using his company expense account to pay for hotel rooms, dinners, and gifts, all for his affairs. Not just with Carla, but with at least 3 other women over the past 2 years. He'd been very careful about it, spreading the expenses across different categories and keeping the amounts small enough to avoid attention. But I was an accountant. Finding hidden money was what I did for a living. I spent 2 days building a comprehensive report, complete with receipts, credit card statements, and a timeline that showed Derek's pattern of using company funds for personal entertainment. Then I made copies and waited for the right moment. That moment came sooner than expected. Derek's car was finally repaired, $1,200 in paint work and detailing to get rid of the fish smell. He was bragging about it at the bar across from Carla's office, where I'd started having lunch twice a week. Insurance covered most of it, he was telling the bartender. But I'm going to find out who did this. When I do, they're going to pay. Any leads? The bartender asked. I've got my suspicions. There's this guy married to someone I know. Real loser type, accountant. I think his wife might have mentioned our friendship and he got jealous. Friendship. Right. You think he's dangerous? Derek laughed. David? No way. Guy's about as threatening as a wet paper towel. But even cowards can key a car, you know? I finished my beer and left, but not before dropping an envelope on Derek's table. Inside was a single sheet of paper with one line. Wet paper towels can be surprisingly absorbent. I was halfway home when my phone rang. Derek's number, which I'd gotten from Carla's secret phone. You son of a bitch, he snarled when I answered. I'm sorry, who is this? You know damn well who this is. If you ever come near me or my car again, Derek, right? Carla's friend from work? I'm afraid I don't know what you're talking about. Don't play dumb with me, David. I know it was you. Know it was me? I'm sorry, but I think you have me confused with someone else. I'm just a harmless accountant, remember? The silence on the other end was deafening. Stay away from me, Derek finally said. Or what? You'll tell my wife we had this conversation? Go ahead. I'm sure she'd be very interested to hear about it. I hung up before he could respond. That evening, Carla was practically vibrating with anxiety. She kept checking her phones, pacing around the house, starting conversations, and then trailing off mid-sentence. David, she said finally, have you been following me? Following you? Why would I do that? I don't know, it's just some strange things have been happening lately. What kind of strange things? She hesitated. Derek's car got vandalized, and today someone left him a threatening note. That's terrible. Did he call the police? He thinks it might be someone he knows. Really? Derek seems like such a nice guy. I can't imagine why anyone would want to threaten him. Carla was staring at me like she was seeing me for the first time. David, if there was something bothering you about Derek, you'd tell me, right? Like what? I don't know. If you thought he was inappropriate with me or something. I pretended to consider this. Well, now that you mention it, he did seem pretty friendly at the office party. Very hands-on. Hands-on? You know, touching your back, whispering in your ear, dancing very close. Some people might get the wrong idea. It was just dancing, of course. I'm sure that's all it was. I smiled at her. After all, you'd never do anything to hurt our marriage, would you? No, never. Good. Because that would make me very angry, and you wouldn't like me when I'm angry. It was a line from a movie, but the way I said it made it sound like a promise. Carla went very pale and excused herself to take a bath. While she was upstairs, I made a phone call to the anonymous tip line at Derek's company. In a disguised voice, I reported suspicious expense account activity by one of their sales managers. I gave them just enough information to start an investigation, but not enough to trace it back to me. By tomorrow, Derek would have bigger problems than vandalized cars and threatening notes. The game was just getting started. Derek was fired on a Tuesday morning at 9:47 a.m. I know the exact time because Monica texted me from Carla's office, where she could see Derek's building across the street. Security just escorted him out. Box of personal items. Looks like he's crying. I was in a meeting with a client, but I excused myself to step outside and call Monica. What happened? I asked, though I already knew. Expense account fraud. Apparently, he's been using company money for personal expenses for years. Hotels, restaurants, gifts, the whole thing. How much? I heard $15,000, maybe more. 15,000. That was actually less than I'd calculated. But apparently, Derek's company had only looked at the past year. If they dug deeper, they'd find much more. Any idea who reported him? Anonymous tip, according to the rumors. But David, Monica's voice dropped to a whisper. Carla's freaking out? She's been on the phone all morning, and she looks like she's going to be sick. Probably just upset for her friend. Maybe she's worried about something else. That evening, Carla didn't come home until almost midnight. When she did, her eyes were red and puffy, and she moved like she was sleepwalking. Long day, I asked from the couch, where I was reading a book about chess strategy. Derek got fired. Oh no, what happened? They're saying he stole money, used his expense account for personal things. That's terrible. Do you think it's true? She collapsed into the chair across from me. I don't know, maybe, probably. Well, if he did steal from his company, then he deserves whatever he gets. Actions have consequences. The phrase hung in the air between us like a blade. Carla stared at me, and I could see her mind working, trying to figure out if I knew about the affair, if I was somehow behind Derek's downfall. David, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you think I'm a good wife? It was the last question I'd expected. Why do you ask? I feel like maybe I haven't been appreciating you enough lately. Taking you for granted. Have you been taking me for granted? Maybe, yes, I think so. I set down my book and looked at her directly. What brought this on? Derek losing his job made me think about what's really important, about how much I could lose if I'm not careful. What could you lose? You, our marriage, everything we've built together. I almost laughed. She was scared. Finally, after months of treating me like a joke, she was actually scared of losing me. Carla, are you having an affair? The question hit her like a slap. She went completely still, her face draining of color. What? It's a simple question. Are you having an affair? David, Why would you ask that? Because you've been acting strange for months. Coming home late, taking mysterious phone calls, being secretive about your schedule. And now Derek gets fired and suddenly you're worried about losing me. It doesn't take a genius to connect the dots. She was shaking now, her hands trembling in her lap. I don't know what you want me to say. I want you to tell me the truth. We stared at each other across the living room. The clock on the mantel ticked loudly in the silence. Finally, she broke. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I've been having an affair. With Derek? Yes. How long? 6 months, maybe 7. In our house? She flinched. Sometimes. In our bed. David, please. In our bed, Carla? Yes. I nodded slowly like she'd just confirmed something I'd suspected rather than destroyed our marriage. Thank you for being honest. That's it? That's all you're going to say? What would you like me to say? I don't know. Yell at me, call me names. Something. Would that make you feel better? It would make me feel like you care. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at our quiet suburban street. Oh, I care, Carla. I care very much. Then why are you being so calm? I turned back to her. Because getting emotional won't change anything. You cheated on me. You brought another man into our home, into our bed. You humiliated me in front of our friends and colleagues. Getting angry won't undo any of that. So what happens now? Now you face the consequences. What consequences? I smiled, and something in that smile made her shrink back into her chair. You'll see. The next morning, I filed for divorce. I'd been preparing for weeks, gathering evidence, consulting with lawyers, making sure everything was perfect. The papers were delivered to Carla's office at 10 a.m., right in the middle of her weekly team meeting. Monica was there to witness it. She texted me immediately. Process server just walked into conference room. Asked for Carla by name. Whole team watching. She looks like she's going to faint. The papers included everything. Photos of her secret phone messages, hotel receipts, evidence of Derek using company money to pay for their dates, a detailed timeline of the affair, and a request for full custody of our assets, based on her adultery and the emotional distress she'd caused. My phone rang 20 minutes later. You bastard, Carla hissed. You couldn't do this privately? You had to humiliate me at work? Like you humiliated me at the office party? That's not the same thing, isn't it? You called me harmless in front of like 80 people. You said I wouldn't know what to do if you left me. Well, now you get to find out what I do know. This is insane, David. We can work this out. No, we can't. You made your choice when you decided to sleep with Derek. Now you get to live with the consequences. What about Derek's job? Did you have something to do with that? Derek stole from his company. I just made sure the right people found out about it. You son of a bitch. Careful, Carla. Your lawyer's going to want you to appear sympathetic in court. Calling your husband names probably isn't the best strategy. She hung up on me, but I wasn't done, not even close. That afternoon, I made another anonymous call, this time to Derek's apartment complex. I reported suspicious activity, people coming and going at all hours, possible drug dealing. It wasn't true, of course, but it would mean visits from police, questions from neighbors, and general harassment. Then I called Derek's gym and reported that he'd been using steroids and selling them to other members. Again, probably not true, but it would get him banned and investigated. Finally, I sent copies of Derek's expense account fraud to every major employer in the city. He'd never work in sales again, by